Welcome back to my channel where we talk about blogging, business, and legal tips. My name is Amira. I am the business lawyer, blogger, and coach behind asoftguru.com, where I help you make money online and legally protect your business with my affordable legal templates and coaching services. Starting an online business is hard, but sometimes protecting it legally can be even harder, especially if you don't know what you're doing. As a business lawyer working for more than 10 years, do you know what are some of the most common legal mistakes I see entrepreneurs making? You definitely want to pay attention to this video because in this video, we're going to cover 13 most common legal mistakes that you want to avoid with your online business. Before we get started with the legal mistakes that you want to avoid in your business, if you're new to my channel, please hit that like button and subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. And I also have a free legal guide that you can download to avoid common legal mistakes in your business. And I also give you the solutions in that guide. So I will link to that in the description of the video if you would like to check it out. Let's start with the first legal mistake that you want to avoid in your online business. And this one is really near and dear to my heart because I watched my own dad making this costly legal mistake that ended up getting him sued for $90,000. Not only that, but the lawsuit lasted an entire year and really changed the trajectory of my life. So if you are familiar with my story or my YouTube channel, then you already know that this is the reason why I became a lawyer in the first place, because I saw my father suffer through this nightmare and I wanted to help other entrepreneurs avoid making similar legal mistakes. Now, what was that legal mistake? It was not using a freelance contract with the contractor that he had hired to help grow his business. So whenever you're going to hire a freelancer to help grow your business, it could be a virtual assistant, graphic designer, SEO editors, website designers, anyone that is not your employee. This is really important for legal purposes. If it's an independent contractor, you always want to make sure that you have a freelance contract in place with them to avoid any kind of misunderstandings, disagreements, and conflicts down the road. And this is the contract that you would need. It's called a freelance contract or an independent contractor agreement. If you don't have this contract in place, please make sure to grab it from my legal store because I don't want you to make a costly legal mistake that could get you in trouble later on. And this is the exact same contract template that my dad wished he had before started working with his freelancer. So you always want to make sure that you use a freelance contract template whenever you're going to hire freelancers. Okay, so let's talk about the second legal mistake that you want to avoid. And this one is really big. And I see so many entrepreneurs making this mistake, which is just grabbing any photo, any video from online and just posting it on their website thinking they're allowed to do that. This is a big copyright violation. Under copyright law, I am the creator of the work I have produced. So you can't just copy my photos, my videos, my content without getting permission. And so you never want to just Google something and grab an image from Google and post it on your site. This is going to lead to a lot of money in damages that you would end up owing. In fact, I know so many entrepreneurs that have gotten in trouble for something like this and ended up owing thousands of dollars to the copyright owner for this violation. So then how do you make sure that you use someone's photos or videos or audios legally? The easiest way to do that is to use what's called a media release agreement. You may have heard of it as a photo release, video release, or a model release. They're all kind of referring to the same thing. And by having this agreement in place, it releases you from legal liability and you also get permission to use that person's photos, videos, audios, or any other content that you like for, either you pay them or you use it for free, but at least you will not run into any kind of legal violations with that. So if you need that legal template, this is a really popular legal template in my legal store. So definitely check it out and make sure that you avoid these legal issues by using this proper legal contract in place. And you can easily put it as part of your terms and conditions. So this way people can click to accept them. Talking about copyright law, the third legal mistake that you want to avoid is using other people's content illegally. So for example, let's say you're accepting guest posts on your website and you have a guest blogger that is submitting a guest post for publication. You always want to make sure as a website owner that you're protected and that you have full legal rights to use that content as you wish and to make any changes to it And you also want to make sure that, that content that you're receiving from the guest blogger is copyright free, meaning they haven't stolen it from somebody else and just submitted it to your site. And now you might be owing some third party some damages because it's not content that's free from copyright violation. So you want to make sure that you have a guest blogging agreement in place that protects you as the website owner and also lets the guest blogger know what are your terms and conditions in terms of accepting that guest post. And then if you're going to pay them or accept the guest post for free, you put all of that in that guest blogging agreement. And to get that template, you can always visit my legal store and check it out. But make sure that you avoid this mistake whenever you're accepting other people's, guest post on your site by having an agreement in place. Okay, so the fourth legal mistake that you want to avoid is seek out unspecialized legal counsel or listen to non-lawyers. And this is something really, really common. When I started my online business, I saw so many entrepreneurs listening to non-attorneys and just kind of getting bad legal advice in Facebook groups and other places. And you just want to always make sure that when you're getting legal help, you're getting it from a qualified lawyer. So for example, you might even have a friend that's a real estate lawyer, but then you need legal help with your business. Don't go to that person because that person may not be qualified to help you out. So go to a business lawyer that truly understands what you're looking for. And same thing, let's say I need help with my heart condition. I'm not going to go to just any doctor, right? I'm going to go to a cardiologist. So that's why there are lawyers, specializing in different areas of law, and you want to make sure that you trust the right lawyer to help you out and do not listen to non-lawyers giving bad advice. Because I remember when I started in the digital space, there was one really successful entrepreneur that was giving very bad legal advice in her Facebook group, telling people that, they can just use any content, any legal template from online, and she had no idea that this could result in copyright violations. And because she had a large following, this was information that was trusted by so many different people, and they were all making legal mistakes. So that's why you always want to be careful about what advice and what information you're getting and from who, right? So make sure that you trust the right lawyer to help you out and do not listen to non-attorneys trying to tell you what to do with your business in terms of legally. Before we get to the fifth legal mistake that you want to avoid in your business, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. This would really help me create more helpful videos for you. Thank you. Okay, so the fifth legal mistake that you want to avoid in your business is not having any terms and conditions on your website. Whether you're selling products or your services or not, you still want to have terms and conditions because they are what's called your website rules. They tell people who visit your site what they can and cannot do with your content. And if you are selling any digital products or any kind of products or services, then you definitely need terms and conditions. You may have heard of them as terms of purchase, terms of service. They're all referring to the same thing. And terms and conditions are legally binding contract between you and your visitor or your customer or your client. And if there's any kind of legal issue or dispute over your service or your product, terms and conditions are what's going to control how that transaction will be resolved. So for example, if you don't have any terms and conditions, then this could happen. And this has happened with so many entrepreneurs that I know. They've had to issue thousands of dollars in refunds for their products or services because they didn't have their customers accept their terms and conditions, or they didn't even have terms and conditions on their website. But if you do have terms and conditions, and let's say there is a situation, and this has happened as well with so many entrepreneurs I know, let's say that someone purchases your product or your service, and then later on, a month later, they file a dispute with their credit card company saying that, they didn't purchase this, and now you're stuck having to resolve that dispute. How are you going to do that? You're going to use your terms and conditions as evidence to show that, hey, look, this is a no refund policy already outlined in my terms and conditions, and this customer clicked to accept them. So now they're bound by those terms and conditions, and this way you can win that battle. And this has actually happened. These are real life examples I'm giving you. So that's why having terms and conditions for your products and services are essential, like you need them. But even if you weren't selling anything, you still need to be able to protect your intellectual property, your website content, or any kind of disputes that you could have with your readers or your visitors. You want to be able to have terms and conditions that clearly outline all of that. So the sixth legal mistake that you want to avoid in your business has to do with not making your website legal. By making your website legal, you make sure that you're protected and that you're in compliance with all the laws. So how do you do that? One of the ways is to have proper terms and conditions, which we already talked about. The second way to do that is to have proper disclaimers on your website to limit your legal liability for the content that you share with the world. So this way, if someone is reading your website or your content, they're not going to use that information against you and come after you for any legal damages that they may have suffered. And you may have seen tons of disclaimers on different people's websites, especially like, for example, if you're in the medical and health niche, then you may have seen medical health disclaimers. If you're in the personal finance niche, then you may have seen, personal finance disclaimers. You may have also seen legal disclaimers, like I'm a lawyer, so I have a legal disclaimer on my website letting people know that all the information that I am sharing is just for informational, educational purposes. It doesn't constitute legal advice. So you get the point. So depending on the content that you're publishing, you want to make sure that you have proper disclaimers in place to protect you. Talking about making your website legal, one of the other mistakes I see entrepreneurs making is not having a proper privacy policy on their website that complies with all the different privacy laws out there. I'm talking the California privacy law, the European Union's GDPR privacy law, and so many others. So you always want to make sure that you have a proper privacy policy on your site that truly complies with all the different laws and regulations out there. Otherwise, you risk getting audited and sued by the Federal Trade Commission. And there are tons and tons of examples of cases that I've previously shared. Take a look at this video where I walk you through all the different privacy laws that you need to be worried about. And I also talk about how to make your website legally compliant. I go into a lot more detail in this video. And another way to do that is to make sure that you have proper legal documents on your site, like 3 different documents: privacy policy, disclaimer, terms and conditions. And if you need help with any of that, you can check out my starter, premium, or VIP legal bundle to get done with all of those documents in just 15 minutes, saving you tons of time and money. These documents are super discounted to make it very affordable for you to comply with all these laws instead of having to hire an expensive lawyer. Before we get to the next legal mistake that you want to avoid with your business, I have a quick question. What kind of business do you have? Do you have an online business? Let me know in the comments below. What is your niche and what kind of business do you have? So talking about making your website legal, one of the other essential things to keep in mind is to make your website legally compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA. In the last couple of years, we've seen a huge increase in lawsuits brought against different companies for non-compliance with the ADA. So under the ADA, you cannot discriminate against people with disabilities if they visit your website. So you want to make sure that your site is compliant with the ADA. And not only that, this applies to you whether you're in the US or outside of the US, because there are international accessibility guidelines and laws out there that you have to comply with. So even if you're outside of the US, you could still run into accessibility issues with your website. As a matter of fact, very recently, I know a blogger that got served with an ADA lawsuit, and she ended up having to pay $25,000 just to settle. But it's a big, massive expense, so you want to make sure that you're doing things the right way and making sure your site is accessible to people with disabilities. And there are different ways to do that. I walk you through all of that in this video where I talk about ADA compliance in more detail. And I've also put together an ADA compliance legal bundle that you can grab, which is going to give you the checklist, the plugin recommendations, as well as the website accessibility statement and other things that you need to make sure that you're protected. If these legal tips have helped you in any way, then please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so I can create more helpful videos for you. Okay, so what legal mistake are we on? I believe it's number 9. The next legal mistake I see entrepreneurs making, and you want to avoid this one, is not forming the right business entity to protect themselves and their business. If you do absolutely nothing, then in the eyes of the law, you're considered a sole proprietor. Let's say I don't form an LLC, you don't form any kind of other business entity, then you would be considered a sole proprietor, and you and your business are considered the same. That means that if tomorrow your business gets into any kind of legal issue, then your personal assets are at risk. Because you and your business didn't have a separation, then all your assets like your checking account, your home, your car, all of them are at risk because of your business and you being the same. So that's why people go ahead and form an LLC or any other kind of business entity to create that layer of separation between their personal assets and their business assets, and this way you protect yourself. So always consult a lawyer and discuss this with your tax professional to make sure that you're you're forming the right business entity to protect yourself and your business. Now, a really common question I get all the time is, when should you form an LLC for your business? And that's a great question. So what I did is I put together a helpful blog post where I walk you through what's an LLC, what's the difference between an LLC and DBA, doing business as, and a lot more in this helpful blog post. So go check it out, and I will link to everything I've talked about in the video in the description. So all the links are going to be below. Okay, so the 10th legal mistake I see entrepreneurs making is not maintaining proper business records. By that, I mean, not keeping track of their expenses, not keeping track of their business documents that they might need. So for example, if you have formed an LLC, you know that you need an operating agreement. Just because your state doesn't require you to file it officially, you still need to have an operating agreement as part of your business records. So if God forbid tomorrow your LLC runs into any kind of legal dispute or issue, you're gonna need that operating agreement to be able to show how your LLC was being managed and how it was being run, and also to show as evidence that your business was indeed separate from your personal assets. And like I said, just make sure that you have all your business records and all your business documents properly stored electronically or physically. So this way, when there's time to file taxes, you have all those important documents in place. So the next legal mistake I see entrepreneurs making is infringing upon someone else's trademark. Whenever you start your online business, always make sure that the name that you're picking is not infringing upon someone else's trademark. And the way to do that is to run a trademark search. You want to do the same thing when you're trying to form an LLC. A lot of times people come to me to run these searches, whether it's a trademark search or whether to form an LLC, and I'm helping a client out, and that's when I see and I do the search and I'm like, wait a second, you can't use this name because this one is already taken by someone else. So you always want to make sure that you're not infringing upon someone else's trademark. And if you want to learn more about trademark and copyrights, because these are two areas people always get confused about, then go ahead and check out this blog post that I put together where I walk you through everything you need to know about trademarks. And I will link it in the description of the video as well. The last legal mistake I see entrepreneurs making all the time, and this one goes back to the very first one I talked about where my dad's business got sued for $90,000, and so many other entrepreneurs I've seen making the same mistakes, is not using proper contracts. So, let's say you and I are a partner in business, we're going into business together as friends. A lot of times people think that, oh, it's a friend or a family member, so then I don't need the formality of a contract. We trust each other, let's just do a handshake deal and make it work. That's where you run into a lot of issues. A lot of lawsuits and legal issues that we deal with as lawyers, we see that they're between families and friends. So you always want to make sure that you keep your personal and your profession separate, like business and personal separate, and make sure that you have a partnership agreement in place if you're going to go into business with somebody else, or if you're going to ever work with anybody else in business, just make sure that you have appropriate contracts in place to protect yourself and to make sure that both parties are on the same page. Okay, so now let's talk about the last legal mistake I see entrepreneurs making. We're on number 13 right now, and that is not protecting their business and keeping their confidential information or keeping their business safe. So one of the most important things that you have is your business trade secrets, your proprietary information, all the hard work that you're putting behind the scenes, you want to make sure that it's protected from competition. So the way to do that is whenever you're working with someone like contractors or employees that you're hiring, or you're collaborating with someone and you're sharing your personal business information, you first want to enter into what's called a confidentiality agreement. So this way that other party is going to keep the information being shared with them confidential and not share with others. If you don't do that, then you risk getting that information into the hands of someone else, and that could be misused. And I'll give you an example. So I had a client and she had hired a virtual assistant, and she openly shared all her business secrets and behind the scenes logins and passwords and all the information with this person. And once the virtual assistant learned all the ins and outs of her client's business, she ended up basically replicating all of that and forming her own business and turned into a competition. So this particular client didn't have a confidentiality agreement in place, so there was no legal recourse, nothing she could have done, but she could have easily prevented all of this if she had first entered into a confidentiality agreement with this virtual assistant, protecting her business assets, protecting her business secrets and trade information. So always use a confidentiality agreement if you're going to hire employees or work with virtual assistants, contractors, or even like collaborate with others at joint ventures and so forth. And if you need that template, you can always visit my legal store and check out all the different templates that I have for you, including the confidentiality agreement. And I will link to everything in the description of this video as well. Lastly, before you go, are you wondering what other expensive legal mistakes that you should avoid as an entrepreneur? Well, that's why I put together this helpful blog post where I interviewed other entrepreneurs just like you who shared with me 15 expensive legal mistakes to avoid in any business. I will link to that blog post in the description of this video, so definitely check it out. And don't forget to sign up for my free legal guide where I walk you through the 3 common legal mistakes I see entrepreneurs making all the time and how to avoid them. This legal guide is an absolute must for any online business. Thank you so much for your love and support. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.